Good afternoon, everyone. The last time we shared our findings in the study we conducted of the impact of non-traditional data in the provision of financial services. From the study, we found that there are some powerful applications to offer consumer more personalized product offerings. Today, we've got an opportunity to unpack this topic further by speaking with one of the biggest player in the industry. It's such an honor and a privilege for me to welcome TrueID, who's going to share some key insight on the use of non-traditional data in the financial sector. From TrueID on the line, I've got Dmitry here. And Dmitry, I just want to say welcome.
Hi, Awelani. Thank you very much. It's great to be here. Thank you for allowing us to engage with you on this platform.
Thank you very much, Dmitry, for those wonderful words. As a question for me, Dmitry, can you give us a background on who TrueID is?
Yes, certainly. So TrueID, our journey began in 2016, and we really set out to solve one particular problem. There was a lot of tension between the national credit regulator and credit providers. And this was due to a new piece of legislation that came out that required credit providers to obtain or certify a consumer's income for the previous 3 months before they could grant the credit. And it was a really daunting thing for consumers to do. There was just no quick way for a consumer to get this information and share it with the credit provider. So back then, a consumer would have to go to their bank, wait in the queue, have these documents printed. Each page would cost money, and then submit this information to the credit provider. And subsequent to that, the credit provider would have a consultant that would manually review this information. They would identify the consumer's income, classify the expenses, and then transfer this into their loan management system. So a very slow and tedious process. And we set out to create a platform that would automate that and allow consumers in a very secure and fast way to share this information with credit providers. But I think since then, our platform has evolved in line with what we are seeing globally, in particular Europe and the UK and Australia. There is a global movement for open banking. And our solution, our platform, has evolved into an open banking platform, a platform that gives consumers control of their data and allows them to share that information as they choose.
Wow. Thank you very much, Dmitry, for such piece of information. So based on what you just said, Dmitry, how is TrueID using non-traditional data to add value to customers?
So as I mentioned previously, the traditional process of granting credit, and there are many sectors where I can talk about how data can be applied, but just because we're on the topic of credit, the traditional method is to obtain this information in hard copies, to have a consultant look through this, and it is a time-consuming, slow process. There is also a high risk of fraud because the documents can be manipulated. There's also a risk of error. And what ultimately we do is we collect the information digitally from the bank. What we then do is run this digital information through our categorization engine. What the engine does is it identifies the consumer's income, and it classifies the consumer's expenses. And this all happens in seconds. So it probably takes anywhere from 30 seconds to a minute to collect the data, and immediately we're able to generate insight into this information. So it's no longer just transaction information, it's something meaningful. From there, the next thing that we do is we automate the affordability assessment. So based on NCR requirements, we then structure a calculation that determines if the consumer is able to afford the credit or not. And that really is just the start. We can apply this data in many facets. So potentially even credit scoring, where non-traditional types of data can be used to assess in much more detail the creditworthiness of an individual.
Wow, excellent indeed. So Dimitri, fast forward 5 years to 10 years from now, how do your organization envision the role non-traditional data could play in adding value or to customers' products in the financial services?
So I think before we even discuss that, it's very important to look at how data is managed. We're
Mhm.
giving control of data back to a consumer. And at TruID, our real focus is to create a robust consent platform. What that means is we allow consumers to control their data. We allow consumers to see where they've shared their data. We allow consumers to understand why they have shared their data. What is the purpose for that data being shared? And at any time, the consumer can revoke access to that data. Now, once we've got a strong and robust consent platform, consumers
Mhm.
are able to share this information. And this information gives an incredibly rich insight into the consumer. And really, what that leads to is hyper personalized products and
Yes.
service offerings in a way that we haven't seen before. And I think those service and product offerings are really going to be drivers of innovation. So products that we may not have even factored in or considered previously are going to now become a need.
Yes.
I think one of the things we like to draw an analogy to is open banking creates a platform, it democratizes the platform. And
Mhm.
a very similar analogy to this is the Nokia and iPhone example. So if
Mhm.
you can recall the Nokia 3310, excellent phone, it had 9 programs on there. And the owner of that phone couldn't add or remove programs. You were stuck with what you got. In
Yes.
2006, the iPhone comes out. And what Apple did was they democratized the mobile platform. And that allowed third parties to understand a consumer and develop products that the consumer wanted onto that phone. And think about what your phone can do now. It's really limitless. You can take 4K video on your phone. You can use GPS to guide you to a location. You can track your fitness on there. You can upload and share videos and photos instantly with friends anywhere in the world.
Yes.
And a lot of these things were actually hard to fathom when that platform was open. And I think that is the potential of creating or opening a platform like we aim to do, is to really have third parties listen to consumers, understand consumers, and develop personalized products and services for those consumers.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Dimitri. I would say this was a very insightful, robust, and very, 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 very mind-blogging, let me say, engagement. And I just want to say thank you very much for your time. And we highly, highly appreciate your input and your insight in this matter. And thank you very much for that.
Awelani, thank you very much. Much appreciated to allow us to engage with you on this platform. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dimitri.